Hey there everyone, my name is Spazzy Dragon aka Syndrome, so Discovery Freelancer, and welcome to part 1 of my Piracy tutorial. Now, a funny thing about this is that I actually made a tutorial for Piracy a few months ago, actually. It was pretty much done a few weeks ago, and the problem is that after I put it together, it was so artificial, so yeah, that it wasn't fun to watch. Like, I did everything. I did it right. I made a script. I talked off the script. It was very, very artificial. It was fake as fuck, and it wasn't fun to look at. Like, all of the encounters were staged. I explained everything you would need to know about piracy, but that's stupid. So these two videos, I think it's going to be two, I don't know yet, are going to be a little less compact. They're going to be a bit more let's play-ish, but at the same time I really hope that it's going to be a lot more interesting for you as a person to watch these things. So, well, let's talk piracy. Okay, so the ship that you see on your screen right now is one of my very, very, very many piracy characters, like piracy-orientated characters. This is more of a support ship. As you can see, it has debilitators to take down shields. It has cruisers up to catch people, and it has cannonball for making people mad. It's called a high profit margin, and yeah, this is my pirate. Now, before we begin, I suppose I need to quickly note that I'm primarily a unlawful sort of player. I enjoy my unlawfuls a lot more than my lawfuls right now, and it's pretty much always been the case. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people will agree with me that usually if you come to some sort of roleplay server and you have the chance to, play out a role you wouldn't be able to otherwise do in real life, you're probably not really going to be an accountant, right? No, we're gonna be badass pirates, and today I'm gonna show you how to make your own. But of course, before we start, all the legal things need to be mentioned. First of all, this is all from my experience. Don't use this as a rock-solid example for piracy, because a lot of people won't agree with it. I'm going to mainly mention the basics, but I'm going to also go in depth from my own experiences, and so on and so on. So, yeah, enough babbling. Let's set up our pirate ship, and in the first part I'm going to show you how to set up a pirate ship, which ID to use, which ships to use, and in the second part we're actually going to go and do some piracy in general. Okay, so the creation of a pirate ship comes right here. This is the very start. Naming your pirate, for me, is a bit of a thing. It really depends on what exactly I'm trying to achieve. Now, you can do this in two ways. You can make your pirate ship piracy orientated, which means that you're probably going to specifically pick out a name that doesn't stand out. And if you are a decent pirate and you want to, catch a lot of people, you'll probably be switching names all the time. You don't want to let one stick, so to speak. Otherwise, people are going to start to either avoid you or hunt you down, etc., etc. But that is not the only reason why people pirate. Maybe you want to be, become a very infamous pirate. Like, your name itself would make people dock their traders. Like, that is also fun. That's also part of the challenge. And having a pirate is challenging, as long as you know how to do it. So, in this particular example, I'm going to make a pirate that I would usually make, which is not going to stand out, which is going to have a very throwaway-ish name that I can change all the time so people don't track me, and so on and so on. So, for the sake of this tutorial, let's name our character Freyo, because why not? Okay, so if you're watching this video, I assume you are sort of like a new player, so maybe you don't really have the, the money just yet. Maybe. I'm assuming you don't, right? And piracy in by itself is actually fun in the way that it's actually very simple. Like, it's very easy to pirate. In general, piracy means you forcefully pin down a trader, usually, well, any player anyway, usually it's a trader, right? And you make a demand. If he refuses that demand, you can kill him. Right, that's pretty much the gist. And when it comes to demands, you can make either a demand for a certain amount of credits, cargo. If you, for example, if you're pirating in a cargo ship, you can ask for cargo, for example, or some sort of roleplay demand, such as to leave the system, to sprout some nonsense in the system chat, maybe, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so what ID to choose? Because right now we're at the starting point. We have our restarts right here, and now we need to figure out which restart are we going to use to make that pirate. So as I already started to say, I'm assuming that you are a new player if you're watching this, and maybe you don't really have as much money. My personal suggestion for you on the future runs is going to be keep at least one pirate in every house. Because Disco doesn't really have the best trade run, right? We are constantly having these little mini events and the prices are changing every once in a while, so the trader population is going to migrate from one point to the other, so my suggestion would be to constantly keep at least one pirate character in every house, but there's an alternative, obviously, and that is to use a, quote, generic pirate. We are going to use the, quote, generic pirate ID. And the pluses and the minuses I'm going to mention in a moment, but first of all, we need to restart so we can actually do this, because as I already mentioned in my Let's Play videos, when you start off with a completely new character without using a restart command, you will start off without anything. Like, you don't have any of the maps explored, so this is going to be very stupid. Okay, now let's take a look at our little list. We have Freelancer Border Worlds, Freelancer Edge Worlds, Freelancer Galleon, Freelancer Liberty. Okay, let's go with restart Freelancer Liberty, because why not? We're going to be focusing on Liberty. Okay, so again, the first question is, what ID do I use? And this is actually the moment where a lot of new players actually fuck up a lot, because they don't understand that piracy in by itself is a very specific type of roleplay that requires to have a specific ID. And if we look at the Freelancer ID, there is nowhere that it states that it can pirate. It says that you can use transports up to a pirate train, but it doesn't really say that you can't. That you can pirate. It even says right here, cannot participate in unlawful actions except as described as above. Yep. So that's the thing. But if we take a look here, you will find the actual pirate ID. There it is. So, an independent pirates are people who want to make money by extorting it from others or through other unlawful means. An independent pirate acts only for his own benefit and has no allegiance to anyone. So basically what this means is that you are a freelance pirate, you can go wherever you like, but it actually comes with a lot of limitations, and which I am actually going to tell you in a moment, but right now we're not actually going to take this ID, because if we would have mounted this ID right now, it would have automatically set all of our reputation hostile to all the unlawfuls, and we don't want that because we haven't had our ship yet. We don't have our ship yet at all, so instead of that, we are actually going to mount a recruit ID. There it is. For now, because we need that recruit ID to go set up the ship. Setting up ships 101, especially when it comes to pirates. Freelance pirates, anyway. If you restarted as one of the faction pirates, then you probably are on their bases and they have their own ships and everything. But we, as a freelance pirate, we can actually use a lot of civilian technology, although with a certain amount of nerf for specific ships, and so on and so on. So, okay, part 2. We have the ID. We have settled on the ID. We're going to buy it once we get the ship, but what sort of ship do we want? And here comes the interesting fact. Technically speaking, you could pirate on any ship you want, right? As long as your ID permits. Right now I have the recruit ID, I can't really show you that, but one of the minuses I'm going to mention during the proper description of the pirate ID is the fact that you can go only up to a gunboat, right? You are fairly limited in your ship class of choice, right? Even though it doesn't really matter because you actually have a very wide range of ships because you can use civilian technology, right? But there you go. So, a small sort of rundown for my own personal tastes. Don't take these for granted. It really is up to you and where you go and what you do, right? But let's start with the smallest ones, the light fighters. So the thing about light fighters is that they are basically interceptors. They are the fastest moving ships in the game, both in fights and in... Ow! Both in fights and ow. Yes, that is exactly what I wanted to say. No, both in fights and in cruise speed, because right now this one is a light fighter. As you can see, I'm going 424. Every ship as of patch what's-his-face on the recent version, we're currently playing 487, we have added different cruise speeds for every single ship class in the game, so the light fighters are obviously a lot faster than, say, a capital ship. The capital ship goes like 320, I think. Fair enough. That's nothing. Okay, so light fighters. Very good at tracking down transports. Very good. Like, you can easily catch them. For example, if you're sitting in the lane, as you will see in the part 2 when I actually get to the Piracy itself, a lot of traders actually tend to sort of jump out of the lane and try to go the opposite direction. Light fighter actually allows you to quickly come up and catch them. No problems. Okay, fair enough. Then we have the heavy fighter and the very heavy fighter, both of which I'm going to dump in together because they're pretty much both the same thing. It requires a certain amount of skill to pilot these things because technically, yes, you sort of have the fighter power to take out transport. Oh yeah, by the way, bottom line for the light fighter is that it's sort of like, you know, support sort of ship. You don't really want to pirate just in the light fighter. Although it's a good challenge, so, you know, feel free. Okay, and the very heavy fighter, fighters in general, a lot more powerful than a light fighter. They can sustain a lot of, you know, DPS over time. Very good at taking out any sort of ship. They're very, you know, very versatile. But the thing about piracy is that you're usually shooting transports, and you really want to take a ship that can, quote, efficiently take out a transport. Because, let's see, like, you know, the lanes are really only that large, so if you're sitting in the middle of the train, in the middle of the trade lane, again, as I'm going to show you in the second part of this tutorial, then you will notice that some transports are actually highly armored, and they can survive quite a long way, and if you're really not really that good at taking them out, then they will dock. They will dock and they will escape, or whatever. So again, you want a ship that can take these things out efficiently. And that is where the bomber comes in. In my own personal opinion, the bomber is the cheapest and one of the best piracy ships you can get. And the reason for this is actually pretty simple. The bomber was meant to take out large and armored ships. They're anti-capital ship ships, right? So you have the Supernova antimatter cannon, you have pretty decent guns that you can shoot for a very long time, might I add. And obviously you have Nova torpedoes, which are actually very damn good against transports, if only because they rip off their weapons. Like, something you will notice, again, in part 2, is that, you know, transport ships have very good guns. They will actually hurt you. But at the same time, these guns don't really have a lot of hit points, so having a Nova torpedo is a very good thing. So, question. You know, if we're going to take a bomber, what sort of bomber we're going to take? And the answer is, the best ship for, well, best bomber ship for piracy is in fact a, quote, heavy bomber. The heavy bomber, what it means is that it has 2 separate torpedo slots and a cruise disruptor slot. As you will see in a moment, we're actually heading to Freeport 4, as you can see right now. And there we are going to get the Varren or Warren, or I don't even know how to pronounce that thing, but anyway, I found myself that this is one of the best ships you can get for solo piracy. Again, if you're pirating with a friend, then, you know, you have all sorts of choices, because whatever minus you can have for one ship, you can sort of, you know, fill with the other. Okay, fair enough, but that's pretty much it then. Is it worth to go higher than that? And yes, technically yes. So the bomber is pretty much a precision ship, right? You deal damage with the supernova and anti-American. You actually have to get a bit too close to the ship, and as you might understand, the transports are actually pretty well armored and pretty well armed. So a very good if the transport you're fighting is pretty well set up, you're actually going to have a lot of troubles, especially if it's one of those medium transports which can very effectively use the turret zoom and turret steering. But again, I'm getting a bit too ahead of myself, so right now we're actually going to buy this bomber and quickly set it up. So I currently drawn about 40 million credits from my bank. By the way, thanks a lot for the donations. This really helps, especially for videos like this. And right now we're going to buy this bomber. Now don't worry, you don't actually need 40 million credits, but I sort of like to keep some extra on the ship at any time, so that's what we're going to do. Just look at this beauty. If you're a new player, be glad that you didn't have to see the old model for this thing. Like, you can find it in the Wikipedia. I think it's still somewhere, maybe, kind of ish, maybe. But let's just say that at one point in time, we would, like, the name Warren Heavy Bomber would refer to the arguably the most ugly ship in the game. We would actually call it the Space Coffin, because it really did look like a space coffin. But god damn it, just look at this beauty. Mass Driver really knows how to make his models. So again, we're going to transfer the ID, so no one really, you know, pokes at us while we're setting up, and we're going to start kitting this baby out. We're currently on a Navy base, but thankfully all of the bomber guns are available with us, because we are using the Liberty Freelancer sort of, you know, restart. So as you can see, we're kind of friendly, neutral-ish with them. I don't know, if you had a different restart, you probably would have need to get some sort of bribe or actually fly back to Coronado to get those things, but whatever. So, one thing you need to remember about transports. They have a freaking annoying shield. It's called the Civilian Light Shield, and it has a habit of having a very, very fast recharge rate. If you take it out, it takes about 5 seconds for it to pop back up. So, for example, if you shoot it out with a snack, you physically won't be able to get the second snack off before regens. So obviously you need to have some sort of guns. But at the same time, you know, like, okay, so what I just said now, you would probably think, oh, well then, you know, I'll just get all of the EMP cannons because they do the most shield damage. Wrong. Most transports are actually very well armored, so at the same time, imagine you are like maybe 5k away from the base. This guy is almost dead, right? And he's about to dock. You shoot one more snack at him, and he goes down to 2% he goes down to 2% hull. Boosh. You need to wait for your core to recharge, you need to wait for your antimatter cannon to reload, and that's it. You can't do anything. If you have all EMP cannons, you're done for. That guy is going to dock, and then he's just going to gloat like fuck all over the system channel. You don't want that, so my suggestion is actually you go with all energy cannons, because sometimes if the ship is actually very, very squishy, you can easily take it out. Like, look at this damage. It's a 4 point. It almost does 2,000 per second. Yeah, pretty much. I have 4 of these. Now, obviously, you can actually go for something a bit more different. For example, you can mount a Hellfire rocket pod on that thing. That will allow you to spam these little buggers, which are actually pretty good, so I'm just going to buy them. I haven't tried them since the last update, and I actually remember... Okay, at the time of this recording, there is a bug that you can't buy more than 70 of these. So, for example, if I buy another one, it's actually not going to buy, like, the buy button is going to disappear, as you can see, and you won't be able to buy more than 70 of these. So, that actually requires us to enter this thing again. And yeah, there you go. Technically, you should be able to get like 140 of these, but right now it is impossible. Bomber turrets, I don't really feel the need because those are, you know, backwards only facing, so meh, fuck that. And okay, there's the gist of the heavy bomber. Like these, it's like 3 cruiser disruptor slots, but 2 of these are actually meant for bomber torpedoes, and the 3rd one is for a CD. When it comes to actual CDs, I would go with the train because it's pretty good. It has a long range. You could technically go with a reinforced, but the reinforced cruiser disruptor is actually meant for capital ships. But it uses energy. It uses the ammo is quite. It's actually pretty much. It costs a lot, and at the same time, it only gives you 500 meters more range, and it travels a bit faster. So I don't know. I still haven't noticed that it's a better choice than just a regular train cruiser disruptor, but, well, there you go. Oh, also, it only has 50 ammo, so. Okay, so this is going to be our bread and butter, the civilian antimatter cannon, which does 132,000 hull damage. And the shield damage is actually pretty good, so you can actually de-shield many transports with 1 shot and then just hammer it off with a Hellfire rocket pod or bomber engine cannons and blah blah blah. So, I know what you're trying to think right now. Spazzy, why are you so focused on taking these ships out? Isn't the gist of Piracy to, you know, get money from this? Like, you don't want to kill the guy, right? Yes, but no. See, the thing about Piracy is that when you encounter a pirate, for example, the first thing you do is scan the guy, and you're obviously thinking, okay, I'm so far away from that base, should I pay this guy or should I try to make a run for it? The more imposing you are as a pirate, the better your ship is set up, the less of a chance the guy is going to go like, you know what, this guy has a pretty shitty setup, he might not be able to kill me, yeah, I'm gonna make a run for it. And he is going to make a run for it, like 50-50, it's a 50-50 chance. So, I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Let's finish setting up this thing real quick. There is the Nova torpedo launcher. That is going to give us some more flexibility. For example, if we want to just... Ah, man, it did the same thing again. It's doing that stupid... Yeah, okay, I need to actually relog. Okay, so something actually fucked up with the server, and it sort of rolled me back for some reason. Again, I have 40 million credits on me, and I'm just going to quickly set this thing up again, and hopefully I will be... I won't forget my train of thought and continue this in a moment. Just give me a moment. Alright, there we go. As you can see, I didn't buy the Hellfire rocket ammo just yet, because I think that might be the reason why it kicked me like that, but there you go. Okay, another thing you want to know about a heavy bomber like the one we're going to use right now is the fact that it actually can use a freighter shield. Now, what this means is I'm going to give you a comparison. This, for example, is the biggest shield you can get on a very heavy fighter, right? The most used ship in the game. The shield capacity is about 11,000. And it's a very good thing. And at the same time, look at this. This goes to 20, and this has a 29. Now, obviously, you would say, oh, well, this has the biggest shield capacity, why not roll with that? But at the same time, as you can see, the shield regeneration rate is very slow for that size. And this one has a smaller capacity, but the regeneration rate is even higher. So it means that this thing is going to just regen like hell, and we just want that. So we're going to take the Brigadine Freighter Shield, right that. And as for thruster, never skimp out on thruster, because these things tend to fall off, so just don't be a little penny pincher, actually get an enhanced thruster, and just roll with it. Next thing we need to have is a scanner. Okay, so these things are a bit debatable. As you can see, we have a very large amount. The regular scanner has a range of 8 clicks and a cargo scanner range of 2, while the advanced deep scanner, for example, has a range of 17,000, but a cargo scanner range of 2. So the thing is, if you know that you're going to be in a very busy place with lots of PvP going on, you might want to go over the advanced deep thrust scanner, because you know, you sort of want to see people moving around. But at the same time, you sort of want to see what they're hauling because you're a pirate, right? So maybe go for the advanced cargo. The range is sort of shit at the same time, right? Actually, just go with a regular. Look, the range is 11k, and the cargo scan range is 6. So, you know, if it's further away than 6k, you're probably not gonna catch it anyway. So, well, go for that. And last but not least, we have the armor upgrade. Now, I'm actually going to make a pretty much a decent video about armor upgrades in the near future, but the idea of a heavy bomber is that you can actually get a heavy armor upgrade like this. I don't think I can actually mount this, no. But as you can see, the base armor multiplier for this thing is 2.25. It means your base hit point pool is going to be multiplied by this number, and you're going to be, you know, hard to kill. So the best thing you can mount on a very heavy fighter is, for example, this one that gives you a 2.5. It occupies 20 cargo space, and it costs 15 million credits. Ship setting up 101. The armor is probably always going to take up around 50% of your ship cost. So, for example, as I said, I got 40 million. As you can see, I already spent around 20 to set up the ship itself, and now I would need another 15 million to actually buy myself the armor. I'm not really going to do that, because, you know, this is for new players, and you sort of want to make sure that you have some extra dosh kicking around. So, take a look at this. This only provides 0.25 less than the best armor upgrade you can get, and it costs 3 million crits, so, you know, the choice is pretty obvious at this point, so we're just going to do that. And as for the Herald Fires, let's just go, no, actually, let's go with 69, wait, 69, and let's just hope that is going to be enough, and hopefully we're not gonna get kicked this time. Launching! Hey, it didn't kick me. Hooray. Funny thing, during the recording of this video, I actually got kicked 3 times. It sort of pissed me off, so yay, it didn't kick me this time. Alright, so this is our little ship. And now we're gonna park it somewhere. Right? But first of all, we're gonna quickly set up our weapon groups, and I'm gonna continue what I was talking about ship types and being able to take out traders, or, you know, be threatening to traders so they pay you, and so on and so on. Okay, so the second is obviously going to be the antimatter cannon, the third is going to be a Nova torpedo, then you have the fourth with this, and so on and so on. Obviously enable the countermeasure dropper so it drops the countermeasures automatically, and there we go. As you can see, I haven't yet bought myself some nanobots and etc, etc. We're actually having to go back to Coronado to get that pirate ID, because as you can see, the base that we actually just docked on is an IMG base. So if I had the pirate ID mounted, I wouldn't be able to get that ship. So again, ship setting up 101, get the ship first, then get the ID. Unless of course it's a capital ship, because, yeah, but no, there you go. Okay, so fair enough. Bombers are bombers, and you already heard me say that, you know, one of the things about piracy is you need to be sort of, you know, threatening. You need to make sure that the trader knows that there is no chance he can escape. He has to abide to your demands, otherwise he's going to get killed. So the obvious question here is, okay, Spazzy, what about gunboats? The gunboats is actually, I would say, the second best choice after bombers for solo piracy. The only problem with gunboats is I already said every single ship class in the game currently has a different cruise speed. So if you get jumped with a gunboat, like if suddenly some sort of lawful arrives, getting away in a gunboat is probably going to be a little bit more difficult than a bomber. But then again, the gunboat is a anti-snub weapon by default, so, you know, if it's a lawful snub, then you might be able to take it out easily. He's probably not going to be that stupid to, you know, charge on a gunboat. But there you go. The only problem with a gunboat that I personally have had is the fact that many traders actually move around in groups, and if you think that a lone transport with lots of gun hurts, oh shit, wait until you see one of those. convoys are actually very dangerous to lone pirates. And that's why people are actually moving around in groups in the first place, right? But, well, there you go. Okay, what about cruisers? Some of the more official piracy groups, for example, the Liberty Rogues, since we're in Liberty, I'm going to use the Liberty Rogues as an example. They allow you to fly cruisers, and obviously you can also pirate in cruisers. The only problem is that, as I already said, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to get away with a gunboat, so it only makes sense that getting away with a cruiser is going to be even more difficult. Even more so because cruisers are really meant to be... well, okay, I'm not going to finish that sentence. They can be very good at taking out snubcraft like fighters and bombers. The reason why I'm saying this is because those are the two most used ship types in the game. And if you get jumped by lawfuls, those are usually the ships you will get jumped with, unless you're in Liberty. And, you know, it takes a specific kind of loadout to take these things on very efficiently and allow you to flee, but at the same time, it's not the loadout you need to take out transports, so you're going to be in a bit of a dilemma. The other problem is that the cruiser actually moves a lot slower than a transport. It's very silly to think about that the biggest transports in the game, like the 5K transports, they thrust and move better than a cruiser. So they can actually outrun you. You have to just constantly cruise up to them, and the moment you start cruising, as you can see, there's no power. See, you can see where the problem is, right? So, again, as a support ship, I would wholeheartedly... Sorry there, microphone. I would wholeheartedly agree. As a support ship, a cruiser is a beast to have. Especially if that's against smaller, like medium class transports, for example, you can just, you know, missile them to death. But again, the bigger the ship, it's usually hard to pirate, and it sort of discredits you. I mean, if you're pirating, then you obviously are doing this for the money, right? But if you already have a destroyer, then, you know, a lot of players are just going to go like, oh great, this guy has a ship that takes about 500 million credits to set up, and he's still pirating me. What an asshole. But, well, there you go. Again, if you're doing this with a lot of friends, I'd actually suggest you each pick a different, you know, a different type of ship, so you can pretty much cover all of the spectrum. But if you're doing this alone, then I would really suggest a bomber. Obviously, there's also cargo piracy. You can do this alone as well, but the same problem as with the gunboat. Pirate transport is actually slower than a snub, so it's, you know, it's hard to get away with it. And not to mention that pirating in a transport solo also has its own moments, which I'm going to, you know, explain to you in the part 2 of this episode. We're going to slowly wrap this one already up, so there you go. Right now we're going back to Coronado to get that ID, and might as well just, you know, talk about ID. The reason why I didn't mention battleships is that battleships don't have a CD, so obviously they are completely useless as a solo piracy ship because you can't stop anyone. And at the same time, if you are a battleship pirate, the chances are you are very easy to notice, you are very easy to catch, and you are very easy to take out. So I'm not even going to discuss that too much, but, well, it's an option. As I said, you can pretty much use any ship you want, but, you know, it's pretty much goes out which is the most effective. So yeah, we're currently going back to the barrier gate to get our ID, and yeah, there we go. That is the last part we need to set up a pirate. The Choices ID is really much one of the, you know, one of the stepping stones in piracy, because choosing the right ID is going to give you your specific zone of influence, your specific rules, and your specific ships. Right now, as I already said, we're going to use a generic pirate ID because I want to show you, you know, some specific moments, and we sort of do require this sort of ID. But before we are going to be done, I am going to show you what the difference is between a pirate ID and a factionalized piracy ID looks like, because, you know, the obvious question right now would be, okay, why would I take a, you know, a Liberty Rogue ID and only be able to pirate in, say, Liberty, if I can just take a pirate ID and just go wherever I want? So, as I already mentioned, the ship type is actually one of the limitations. The Liberty Rogue ID actually allows up to a cruiser, while the where is it? The pirate ID allows only up to a gunboat. If you have in doubt, you can see this right here, like fighters, freighters, transports, gunboats. That is our ID, and the moment we are going to undock, we will have our reputation change. As you can see, the reputation is still like this right now, and the moment we will undock, I'm actually going to show you another reason why a pirate ID is not as good as it sounds. Okay, so you can see it turned us red to practically all of the lawful factions, but then you see factions like the Xenos there as well, and look at this, like the more we go, like Mollies, Unionators, all Golden Crescentiums, Red Hessians, all of these are unlawful factions, so why the hell are they red to us? Well, here's the problem. All the factionalized pirates, both in roleplay and out of roleplay, view freelance players. You know, I'm gonna dock right now because the sound is annoying. All of these players view freelance pirates as competition, and they are going to attack you. So it means by using this ID, we're actually very limited to all the places we can dock, and that's just something you need to keep in mind. So the moment we're going to actually go out there and choose where we pirate, we need to keep in mind that we need to make our own like retreat routes, like something happens, we need to quickly leave the area, so we actually know which bases we can go and dock on. Because this thing actually limits where we can go, where we can dock anyway. We can go wherever the hell we want, but, well, there you go. The last thing I want to mention about this ID, and this is actually a very bad thing. A lot of people don't remember this, and they get sanctioned quite a bit about this. The pirate ID, if you look at it very closely, can attack any ship in self-defense only. See the problem? It can demand cargo and creds from any ship and then attack them if they don't comply. But you cannot attack any ship just out of sight. Like, if you're going to do piracy, you probably already know that you cannot destroy transports. Like, transports like trader players are actually under the protection of the server rules, so, you know, you can't just blow them up. You actually have to use a pirate ID or an ID that allows such moments to request either cargo, roleplay, or credits, and only then you can destroy them if they refuse. Right? If, for example, they pay and you kill them anyway, you're gonna get sanctioned, and that's a very bad thing, obviously. So again, one of the limitations of such a wide zone of influence sort of ID is the fact you cannot engage lawful targets at will. You can only run from them, or if they shoot you first, then you can shoot back. So that's just something you need to keep in mind. Okay, so this is it for part 1 of my, you know, sort of let's play-ish piracy tutorial. In this tutorial, if you were paying attention, I showed you how to decide on a name for your pirates. I showed you what a restart to use if you want to do whatever sort of pirates. I briefly covered what sort of ships you can use and why. I also covered what sort of IDs you could use and where and how, and etc, etc. And in the part 2, hopefully, which I'm going to make in a moment, we're actually going to go and pirate with this thing, and I'm going to show you all the ins and outs and how to be a, you know, successful sort of pirate. So again, this video is thanks to you, because I have now, with these donations, I have some spare money to make to use on these sort of tutorials with these ships, and hopefully this tutorial is going to be good for you. Stay tuned for part 2. This was Spazzy Dragon, aka Syndromes. Fly safe.